Hey guys, Spud here. Have you ever found yourself in the Mission Editor, creating your next DCS World mission masterpiece, or strapping into your cockpit in a multiplayer server, and you open up the payload panel, and you're a bit confused by how many different versions of the AIM-9 Sidewinder are available for your favorite jet? Which one do you pick? Which one has the best capability for the era of the mission you're flying in? Well, in today's video, we are taking an in-depth look at every single AIM-9 Sidewinder variant available for a player-controlled aircraft in DCS World, and putting together a chart for you to reference in order to ensure you choose the right weapon with the most capability for your mission's time and place, whether that be the early days of the Cold War all the way through today. On our chart here, we will be ranking all of our AIM-9 Sidewinder variants from the least capable at the top to the most capable down on the bottom. And we'll be using a number of metrics to inform our ranking system here. These metrics include introduction year, range, aspect, scene or Sidewinder expanded acquisition mode, which allows the AIM-9 seeker head to scan in a predetermined pattern and allow the seeker head to be slaved to a radar lock, HOBS or high off-bore sight capability, rocket motor, and finally flare rejection capability. Our last category here, showing any other designations the missile may have in DCS World to avoid any confusion. With so many variables affecting missile performance, such as positive or negative delta Mach, altitude, temperature, and humidity, just to name a few, for ease of use and simplicity for quick reference, we'll be using the adjectives poor, fair, good, and best for our ranking system. So without further ado, let's jump in and get started with the AIM-9B. The AIM-9B Sidewinder is the very first operational variant of the now ubiquitous Sidewinder family, used by air arms across the world, both on the good guy and not so good guy side. The missile was originally developed by the munitions scientists at China Lake by mating a new and experimental IR seeker head, developed using technology scavenged from the Nazis during Operation Paperclip, to the body of a 5-inch Zuni rocket. The AIM-9B would eventually emerge from these experiments and enter operational service with the US Navy in 1956. Of course, being the first model of Sidewinder, its range is poor. It has a rear aspect only seeker head with a very small seeker head FOV and tiny lock and launch envelope. Of course, it lacks SEAM mode and has no high off-bore sight capability. It comes with a very smoky first-generation rocket motor, and along with that, it is easily decoyed by IR countermeasures or flares. This weapon was widely exported across the world, and in DCS you can also find it listed with the Swedish designation RB24 or the pre-1962 Tri-Services Designation Act GAR-8 designation. Our next AIM-9 variant in DCS is the AIM-9J model. But it should be noted that there are a number of very interesting Sidewinder developments between the B and J models, as the US Navy and Air Force created diverging Sidewinder development branches. And hopefully, we'll get some more early variants when the F-100 Super Sabre, F-104 Starfighter, and early Iranian F-14 Tomcat are introduced to the game. The AIM-9J is an Air Force specific variant, that features a more powerful rocket motor, larger double delta control surfaces for increased maneuverability, controlled flight was doubled, and partial solid-state electronics for increased reliability and resilience to flight operations. The AIM-9J was introduced in late 1972, and for our chart had poor range, limited to rear aspect lock capability, lacks a seam mode along with most Air Force-specific variants of the AIM-9, and lacks high off-bore sight capability, of course. The J model also retains a very smoky motor, making the weapon easy to spot in flight and features poor flare rejection capability. But keep in mind, this weapon was designed before Soviet aircraft even carried any IR countermeasures. The next Sidewinder available to DCS World pilots is the AIM-9P or AIM-9 Papa. This weapon is again found on the US Air Force side of the Sidewinder development tree. While mostly designed as an export model to NATO and other allied countries, the weapon improves upon the previous J and N model with even larger double delta control surfaces for a widely expanded launch and maneuvering envelope, full solid-state IR seeker head and guidance module electronics, vastly increasing reliability in the air while greatly increasing its shelf life in storage and on the ground. The AIM-9P would be heavily upgraded with upgrade kits and new build weapons over its service life, with a number of Papa subvariants modeled here in DCS. Some sources differ due to there being so many models of the Papa Sidewinder produced, but most point to the base model AIM-9P as both a new build weapon and upgrade kit for previous models being introduced in the 1975 timeframe. On our simplified chart, it has poor range, rear aspect only capability, lacks a seam mode, and features a very smoky rocket engine, along with poor flare rejection capability. But in every way, it is a massive improvement on previous Sidewinder variants modeled in DCS World. While highly related to the previous AIM-9P, the AIM-9 Papa III is where our chart and AIM-9 Sidewinder capability gets a little complicated. And through your own experiences, you may start to rank these missiles in a slightly different order. The Papa III retains most of the components of the previous AIM-9P, save for one critical area: the weapon's rocket motor, which makes the AIM-9P3 very unique in our lineup. Introduced in roughly 1977 alongside the revolutionary AIM-9L, the Papa III's rocket motor has a pretty big leg up on even the beloved and famous Lima Sidewinder. The AIM-9P3's reduced smoke rocket motor pushes it further, faster, and with far less of a visual signature, making the weapon much harder to evade. But, like the AIM-9P, it's limited to rear aspect only, lacks a seam mode, and of course a high off-bore sight mode. But another bright spot is its basic flare rejection capabilities necessitated by the Soviet introduction of IR countermeasures to their aircraft. The next weapon on our chart is probably the most famous and revolutionary version of the Sidewinder, the AIM-9L. The AIM-9L was made famous by its use by British Sea Harrier pilots in the Falklands conflict, due to its staggeringly high kill probability and all-aspect seeker head capability that forever changed the nature of air-to-air combat. Thanks to the AIM-9 Lima, a fighter pilot no longer needed to maneuver behind his or her opponent to take a shot with an IR-guided weapon. Thanks to the seeker head being sensitive enough to lock onto the heat generated by the friction of air flowing over an aircraft's skin. The AIM-9L also marked the end of the diverging lines of development between the US Navy and US Air Force, and all subsequent variants of the Sidewinder would be shared between the two branches, vastly simplifying development, production, and logistics. The AIM-9L was introduced in 1977, and on our chart, its range loses out to the AIM-9P3 thanks to its older, very smoky rocket motor, giving it reduced range and a highly visible visual signature. But this is more than made up for by its all-aspect capability. The AIM-9L also features SEAM mode, and while the US Navy used SEAM to great effect over Vietnam, it is the first time the US Air Force fielded a Sidewinder with this extremely potent capability. The AIM-9 Lima, of course, lacks high off-bore sight capability, and its flare rejection capabilities are fair, but highly improved over the AIM-9 Papa III. The AIM-9 Julie is one of the most interesting and rarest versions of the Sidewinder we have in DCS World, and is an extremely effective weapon in the arsenal of the F-4E and Mirage F1. Through the 1980s, Diehl Defense in West Germany built thousands of AIM-9Ls for the European market, and eventually improved upon the missile significantly, while the US tightly controlled the export of the latest Sidewinder variant, the AIM-9M. The AIM-9 Julie is an upgrade kit produced by Diehl Defense for previous legacy AIM-9J, N, and P models to bring the weapons up to the latest Diehl Defense AIM-9L standard. These kits were only procured by the Luftwaffe and Spanish Air Force, making this version of the Sidewinder the murkiest and most mysterious version of the weapon we have in DCS. Interestingly, it appears that our AIM-9 Julie here in DCS is an upgraded AIM-9J due to its smaller double delta control surfaces. While it's hard to find concrete information, it appears that the AIM-9 Julie was introduced somewhere in the mid-1980s, and on our chart features fair range and speed due to its more modern, reduced smoke rocket motor, making it much harder for an enemy aircraft to see and then decoy or evade. It features a very good all-aspect seeker head like the AIM-9L, but interestingly lacks a SEAM mode due to the Spanish Mirages and Luftwaffe F-4Fs lacking the capability to take advantage of such a mode. Of course, it lacks high off-bore sight capability, and its flare rejection capability is fair, but increased over that of the base AIM-9L, thanks to Diehl Defense's improvements to the weapon's seeker head. The AIM-9 Julie seems to be the most misunderstood variant of the AIM-9 in DCS, and if you're a Mirage or Phantom pilot, you should definitely give her a try. The AIM-9 Papa V continues the modular Lego set-like family of the AIM-9P that we've covered previously. While the AIM-9P4 that we do not currently have in DCS introduced the all-aspect seeker head of the Lima to the Papa family, the AIM-9P5 is an additional upgrade to bring the P models up to the new AIM-9M standard, with a smokeless rocket motor and highly enhanced flare rejection capabilities. Introduced in 1986, on our chart, the AIM-9P5 is listed as good for range thanks to its new, completely smokeless rocket motor, reducing its visual signature, but falls just barely short of the AIM-9M on range thanks to the additional drag created by its legacy AIM-9P type large double delta control surfaces. It features an all-aspect seeker head that includes SEAM mode for the first time on the Papa series, and great flare rejection capabilities. The AIM-9 Papa V can really be seen as an equivalent to or alternative to the AIM-9M in most respects, and it might be worth it to lose just a hair of range to get that classic look of its beautiful white paint job and double delta canards. The AIM-9 mic can, in all respects, be considered a product-improved AIM-9L, and brings together all of the best features of the Sidewinder family we have previously explored. The AIM-9M retains the same features and missile airframe design as the previous AIM-9L, but with a number of enhancements that made the mic the king of the Sidewinder family for 20 years prior to the introduction of the AIM-9X. There isn't much to say about the AIM-9M that we haven't already covered, as it brings all of the best Sidewinder features into one package. Introduced in 1983, it features a powerful smokeless rocket motor for greater range and reduced visual signature over the AIM-9L, a further enhanced all-aspect seeker head featuring seam mode, and a greatly enhanced flare rejection capability. But at this point of Sidewinder development, still lacks high off-bore sight capability. It should be noted that the AIM-9M was responsible for all AIM-9 Sidewinder kills during the 1991 Gulf War. Following the end of the Cold War, the West was shocked during the Red October exercises by the Luftwaffe's newly inherited MiG-29A Fulcrums and the AA-11 Archer's high off-bore sight capability. And the US military knew it needed a new high off-bore sight capable IR-guided air-to-air weapon. While significantly delayed due to the peace dividend, the answer to the Archer would be the AIM-9 X-Ray, the first all-digital and significantly redesigned AIM-9. But it should be noted the AIM-9X is very much still in the Sidewinder family, using the same warhead and rocket motor as the AIM-9M. Introduced in 2003, a full 20 years after the AIM-9 mic, the X-Ray has the best range out of all the Sidewinders in DCS, thanks to its clipped control surfaces, giving it significantly less drag than the AIM-9M. The weapon is of course an all-aspect Sidewinder, and includes up to 90-degree off-bore sight capability. It definitely integrates seam mode, and can also have its seeker head slaved to the pilot's GeForce, matching and far exceeding the capabilities of the AA-11 Archer. The missile retains the same powerful smokeless rocket motor of the AIM-9M, but with added thrust vectoring control, allowing for its amazing high off-bore sight capability. The AIM-9X's imaging infrared seeker head gives the weapon fantastic flare rejection capabilities thanks to its focal plane array sensors generating an IR image of the target instead of just following a simple hotspot. All in all, the AIM-9X is by far the most capable IR-guided missile in DCS World. And with the upcoming DCS F-35A, Eagle Dynamics should be integrating the AIM-9X Block 2, which adds lock-on after-launch capability, allowing an F-35 to keep her weapons bay doors closed longer in an engagement, keeping her stealth capabilities intact for as long as possible. Well, there you have it guys, our filled out chart of all of the AIM-9 Sidewinder variants available for player use in DCS World. I sure hope this video and this chart helps you pick the right weapon for your mission to match your mission's era, theme, and the capabilities you need. Hopefully, with the integration of more aircraft into DCS, such as the forthcoming DCS F-100 Super Sabre, F-104 Starfighter, and F-35A Lightning, we will be getting even more versions of this famous and ubiquitous weapon system. I will definitely be adding to this chart and making a part 2 to this video in the future if more of these variants come. So guys, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and a subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Fly safe out there and enjoy this beautiful game.